And it's so true. We want to take more because we have a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
And we're supposed to just focus on, okay, there's
God will
enough
provide.
for today. And it makes me think of Matthew in the Sermon on the Mount. It says, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow can worry about itself. Today's trouble is enough for today. Welcome back to chapter 16 of Exodus, where we just talked about the waters of the Red Sea and the waters at Marah and Elam. And now there's more grumbling, more complaints, right? Which is
more saltiness.
More saltiness. This time the people were complaining about the food. They said, oh, we had so much wonderful food to eat in Egypt, even though they forgot about all the abuse they went through as slaves.
Yeah, and
they were numbed of abuse.
Yeah, they were quite numbed. And we actually have here, because we said they were complained, but there are two different types of complaints. Complain in faith.
Okay.
And then complain without faith.
How does that look?
Okay, so what you said, for example, that David was in a relationship with God and he complained in prayer because it was about really problematic events taking place. And it's like, God, please, I'm complaining about this because there needs to be something done to this situation. And then complaining without faith is just taking something for granted and complaining about it. And here we get to the manna. And what is manna?
What is manna?
I'm asking you this time first.
Manna, what is that?
Okay, manna is we find in games that you use for your spells and stuff and magic. No, it's not the same manna. It's the manna. Yeah, you're confused.
But manna does mean what is it?
It does mean what is.
Literally, where is that part again? It actually says that manna means what is it?
What is
it? Let me just find that part. Just hold on for me. You can talk while I'm trying to find the part.
So what manna is? Okay, it says what is it, but it was actually also a type of bread.
It is. Now I can't find the part where they say what is it.
It is bread that they got every day. And the thing that they did was actually taken for granted because God was providing every day. And what he said is, do not have extra for the next day because it will rot and go bad. So what they did, so you get some people that actually did take extra for the next day and then they were fruit.
But that was when it was not just before the Sabbath. Remember that?
Yeah, please.
So the Sabbath, they obviously had to rest. So on the day before the Sabbath, they could take twice as much. Mm-hmm. So that the Sabbath, they have food and they can rest. But on the days that there weren't, where it wasn't before the Sabbath, like a normal day, they were only supposed to take enough for just that day. Which makes me think of the heavenly prayer Jesus did. Give us this day our daily bread.
Our daily bread. That's a really cool thing.
Right?
And why? So I've written here they complained without faith. Why did they complain?
They complained because they were lacking in resources.
Even though God was providing everything that they do need. They got everything that they needed, but they still complained because they thought they were too short of resources. Isn't that life summed up today, that we think, I need this or that, and then, like, for instance, I need money, then I'll stress less about money, but then you just end up stressing more.
More money, more problems.
Yeah. So, interesting. Yeah. So they were not in the giving aspect, they were in the receiving, self-centered aspect, if you think about that, because they were taking things for granted because they wanted more, because they were thinking about themselves, about their needs, but actually all that you need is what God provides. We actually need the bare minimum, which is way less than we actually think.
Very true.
Yeah.
So how manna worked was the fact that it appeared every night and it laid on the ground. It says here, verse 13, that evening, that's something else. But every night the manna would come and then they would gather it in baskets and most likely sift it through to not eat the sand, because if you ask Anakin, he doesn't like sand. It's rough, coarse, and gets everywhere.
Sandy bread. Just to think that actually got off the sand. Mr. Sandman.
I think of Sandman from Spider-Man 3. Anyway,
let's proceed. So
the manna was actually described in what it looked like. in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, here's the thing. What is it? For they did not know what it was.
It's manna.
It's manna. What is it? Man, I don't know what manna is. And they ate it, and
they
later
ate without
on,
knowing where it is.
yes, because it came from the Lord. And it was bread from heaven. And if you think about it, Jesus is the bread of life. He is like the ultimate manna.
And that's another link.
Another link to John.
Wow.
He's the ultimate manna. John 6, I believe, is where he said he's the bread of life, if I remember it correctly. And
so I'll just link it in the description.
Yes.
Or the card up there.
Go check it out somewhere over here. And what's cool is it actually explains what manna tasted like in verse 31, which reads as follows. The people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. Sounds tasty.
Wafers with honey.
Wafers with honey.
That's like a sweet.
Like a sweet. It almost sounds like waffles, but it's definitely not waffles.
Waffles with honey.
Waffles with honey sounds good.
Except it's very, very, very flat and white.
Waffles. Yes, because this was nothing like waffles.
Because it's not waffles.
No, this is very thin type of flaky stuff. And that's not the only thing that they ate. There was also quail, which was little birds that they ate.
Yes.
And that was basically manna and quail that they ate in the desert. And when it was close to the Sabbath, they had to take twice as much just to accommodate for the rest day. But what happened when they disobeyed it?
I wonder if they bride every day for the quails.
I don't know.
To cook the quails.
They might have done that.
Might have.
Maybe.
So
but
when they disobeyed, what happened? As mentioned earlier, it just rot.
And there were like worms and stuff.
Was there?
Yeah, it actually says here. Let me just quickly find it. It right here, verse 20. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning. But it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them.
Wow.
I told you guys, when it's close to the Sabbath, the day before, you get twice as much. The other days, just take enough for today. And it's so true, we want to take more because we have a scarcity mindset.
Yes.
And we're supposed to just focus on, okay, there's
God will
enough
provide
for today. And it makes me think of Matthew in the Sermon on the Mount. It says, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow can worry about itself. Today's trouble is enough for today.
Oh, wow. We'd like to borrow from tomorrow's sorrows.
Yes. And then what we're supposed to do is just focus on today. And this makes me think of another passage in James, the brother of Jesus, where he says, what good is it that you say, we're going to go there and for the next year, we're going to do business like this and this and this. And then he says, you don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. Rather say, if it's the Lord's will, we do this and this. And that brings you in a humble state. Because Timu and I, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. I have plans for tomorrow, but those plans might change or the day might turn out a little bit differently.
Yes, because you can't even guarantee that tomorrow is going to be a day. It might be even a night, or the sun might go out. Who knows?
Wow. Because I mean, for example, literally tomorrow I'm going to a wedding. And there's the entire schedule planned out for the 8-hour shoot. But somebody might show up late, or something happens in a different order, or the ceremony might happen a bit quicker or a bit later. You never know.
I heard someone say that you can make plan from A to Z, whatever. Let's say you have this business plan or party plan. You can everything to the T, but you should actually only go to the first plan, because whatever happens after the first plan, you're just gonna throw off everything else out the window, because there is always something that you don't take into consideration.
You have to adapt.
And the series with the masterminds and everything, that is just plain luck.
And it's funny.
Plot armor.
It's funny because I recently shot a short film for my studies, and I had a detailed schedule of what each day we had to shoot. And then there were multiple times where something that we were supposed to shoot, we shot later because there was something else that wasn't in place. and then we had to swap those around, and then the rest was fairly on schedule.
And it was planned for what, 6 days?
It was technically supposed to be 6 days, and then it turned out to be longer.
Turned to be 8.
And it's funny because we planned it as good as we can, and then something went wrong, or we forgot a prop or whatever, then we had to adapt, and it didn't go as I thought it would. And even at a wedding, something might be quicker, or instead of recording the women first and then the men, like usually before the ceremony, you have the preparations of the women and the preparations of the men. That can be switched around.
This is just showing that we do have tendencies to look too much into the future than being in the present. That's what dogs are so happy, because they're always in the present.
That's very true.
They're
always taking naps.
And
like mine.
That's also pushing us that we need to trust God for tomorrow, or what's going to happen next. That's why He is the light for our path.
Yeah, because
we just have to take the next step, which is now.
Literally, because a lamp only enlightens what's right in front of you.
Yes.
Because God is not saying my spotlight.
Not my spotlight.
You follow. Because we want a spotlight to see what's happening over there, but God is just He's like, here's a lamp. Okay, one step at a time.
With a spotlight, you're gonna trip and fall because you can only see what's happening there.
Oh, true. Here. Well, that just
so you actually do need a lamp.
You just dropped a penny. That was really well said.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, I love that. But they ate manna and quail for the time they were in the desert, and they were supposed to, of course, not take double when they're not supposed to. But what's interesting is that in verse 33 to 36, it says that they had to take a jar and put an omer of manna in it. I can't remember how much is an omer, but it's probably... I actually have no idea how much it is. I'll probably just put in words how much an omer was, weight-wise. And with that and the tablets of the covenant, the 10 commandments, they put it in the ark of the covenant. And it's funny because the ark wasn't made yet. Let me just make sure about that. The Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, put the manna with the tablets of the covenant law, so that it might be preserved. Oh, sorry. The ark isn't mentioned yet, but they took an omer of the manna and the tablets to preserve it for future generations. And then if I have it correct, later on when the Ark of the Covenant was made, then they put those things along with Aaron's staff inside the Ark for future generations.
Did someone maybe take a bite during the generations?
I don't know.
Some of it, and then it just became less.
I don't know.
We'll never know.
I don't know, but you can ask God. Like, hey, God, I have a question for you. Did somebody take a secret bite from the manna they preserved? And then I don't know if God's going to laugh or say, you know what? Yes, it did happen, or no, it didn't happen. Like, Timu, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just worry about today.
I would like to know what Paul did for that year in Arabia, because nobody knows.
Maybe
for sure.
Maybe he took some.
I think he studied, but we don't know for sure.
We'll never know.
There's literally a theologian or a pastor where he said he's done so much research on that and he couldn't find an answer.
Can't make a dent in this knowledge.
Yeah. But anyway, that is chapter 16, where God provided manna and quail when they were grumbling and complaining. But as you said in the beginning of the episode, you have to be careful when you complain. It's wrong to grumble because it shows you're unthankful. But like David, he complained to God, and then after you complain to God, you're supposed to think of a solution with him.
Yes.
That's the difference. Don't just grumble and say everything is bad, it couldn't get any worse, but then you vent with the Lord, and then you listen to him and say, okay, you've said what you had to say, now let me speak. That's how it should go.
We ramble quite a lot and don't give God a chance to speak actually and to listen. We need to shema.
Yes.
Shema.
And as for chapter 17 that's coming next, it is also to do with water, but from a rock.
And we'll see you guys in that episode.